Attention carriers, brokers, and dispatchers. You're tuned into the eCarrier Check channel, where we bring you the insider tips, tricks, and insights to drive your sales and logistics business to new heights. Each week, your hosts, Jared and Nate, sit down with the top professionals in the industry, diving deep into everything from prospecting and cold calling to maintaining carrier relationships and maximizing your bottom line. Learn real-world strategies, hear success stories, and get actionable advice you can implement in your business today. So buckle up and get ready for an entertaining and informative ride. This is the eCarrier Check channel, your source for can't-miss logistics intelligence. Stay tuned.
Hello, good morning, happy Friday. What a week it's been, man. I just have a good time sitting in this chair with you, just kind of chatting with everyone, and I love the people that show up on these days and just talk about the weeks. But before we jump into what we're doing today, what's up, Seahers?
What's going on?
Hello, Freaky Friday. Hope you're feeling good, man. But Jared, how's your week been, man? I know on Wednesday when we talked, it was still pretty busy.
Yeah.
This morning it's a little bit quieter.
Yeah.
I kind of assumed that, but in your mind, how did you feel like the week went?
Yeah, we talked to a lot of newer brokers this week, which I think is awesome. That's the only question I have is, how did I get into this? Oh, my gosh. I love that. That. That's such an interesting question. Honestly, the carriers and brokers we talked to, we're definitely doing some pre-planning. How do you make the most of the revenue over the next 2 weeks? And so they were doing some pre-planning. Mm-hmm. I also enjoyed, we had a couple people that we met with that were just focused on how to get better at cold calling. Yeah. That was an interesting meeting. I enjoyed that. Yep. And so we definitely have seen the gambit. Mm-hmm. The people that are like already on vacation. Yeah. That are just like, I'm done. We've got 2 weeks off. And then the other people that are like, how do I get better? So, and I love both, honestly. Yeah, I'm okay with the, let's take a month off or a week and a half off, 2 weeks. Yeah. I think that this time of year is literally just like Tire Killer says, why the hell did I get into this? It's such an interesting question to start the show. Yeah. How did you get into freight, Nate? I mean,
gosh dang, my buddy. I feel like it's either like my buddy got me into it. Woke up one morning. He's like, "Hey, you should check into the, this industry. You should see what it's about." And he was telling me how much. I don't know if it was fun, but it was just like it's never a dull moment. But there's some fun days. You work hard, play hard mentality. But that's how I got into it. And I think, what's your story? It's kind of the similar.
Yeah. I have. I grew up with a guy and his dad, and they owned a fairly decent sized LTL company called Nebraska Transport. Mm-hmm. And it was, they had a couple hundred drivers. They had, I don't remember, 11, 12 terminals throughout the Midwest. Yep. Obviously they dominated and crushed Nebraska. Then it got sold off and a few things like that. So, but luckily I had a buddy in this industry. I would never even think about this industry.
Did your buddy he just like telling you about like how crazy it was? And then where you just kind of sit back and be like, man, that is kind of crazy. Like, I don't see myself getting into it, but now you're here. But like,
this might be the best question I've ever heard.
Okay, let's hear it.
No.
Okay.
He never talked about work. He never talked about what a freaking crazy industry this was. Yeah. We usually probably drink too much or play too many cards or we never talked about it, man. Yeah. And then I'm not kidding you. If he's watching, I don't know if he's watching, but I'm not kidding you. I was like a week and a half. I was still wearing suits and ties from Tiffany's.
Oh, man.
I'm a week and a half in, and one of our drivers took a crap He defecated. He did number 2 on a shipper's friggin' doorstep.
Holy cow.
I'm 2 weeks in and I'm like, now we're having fun. I went home and I was like, honey,
I couldn't believe this.
here's what I dealt with today.
Yeah.
You know, and so he never said anything. So it's so funny
That
you
is
ask that
crazy.
question. You know, did he give you a heads up?
No.
No.
Well, here you are. You know,
No.
how many years later?
Yeah, I mean, hundreds, I mean, thousands and thousands of miles in a car with
Yeah.
him. And we would do cold calls all over the country. We would do driver appreciation week all over the country, or at least in the Midwest. And we learned so much.
Yeah.
You know, we
Oh,
had
my
an
God.
opportunity to meet with so many incredible drivers. In fact, I still kind of see some of these drivers around town.
Yeah. He is
I
watching.
love
That's
it.
hilarious.
Oh my gosh, weirdest phone call did you ever get? Yes, exactly. It was nuts. I mean, good Lord, it's ridiculous. I would be curious though, if you guys are watching, how did you get into the freight industry? I was lured in by the glamour of trucking and then
Yeah.
found out the realities afterwards. Everyone's like, let's make some money.
Yeah.
That's funny. Phil's grandpa started Nebraska Transport. You know, it would have been interesting. So he went to work. I think he the story always went, you know, he was from central Nebraska, came out to western Nebraska and just ran out of gas.
Mhm.
And I'm like, what kind of car are you driving where you run out of gas from central Nebraska to western Nebraska? This is ridiculous. But I think he ended up working for like a trucking company, worked in a train cars. And that was how he, you know, supported his family. And then next thing you know, he had that entrepreneurial spirit and took on, you know, a lane. I think that was
Yeah.
before regulations. You know,
Right.
back in the day, carriers had regulations that they had to follow specifically around where they could go.
Right.
Um,
Interesting.
and so,
You know, I'd be curious. I know Phil's watching today, and you know, he was born into this industry,
he
literally.
doesn't know anything
You
else.
know, if he wasn't doing trucking, I wonder what he would be doing.
I can tell you. I
I was a COVID grad, and it just fell into my lap. Interesting.
No kidding. That's so interesting. I always like seeing and hearing how people got into
Yeah.
the industry. If Phil wasn't in this industry, I think he'd be doing like sports announcing,
That's fair.
radio announcing, something like
Yeah.
that. He's always been good with the
Yeah.
sports there.
Yeah.
I think this time of year, and we've got a special guest on today. I'm super excited. I'd actually like to hear how she got into this industry.
Yep.
To be honest with you, we got Samantha on here in a little bit.
Yeah. Billy, you might know Samantha Jones. I think you guys probably work closely together. She's
Yeah.
amazing. So
Yeah.
we're ready for her to come on.
Friggin' wild.
But yeah, I'm super excited to talk about, you know, powerful questions you should be asking yourself about your business, because I don't think this is talked about enough. And maybe we do talk about it. It's
Yeah.
just whatever, right? But I think it's important that we do talk about this subject and we ask these questions. Sports broadcaster for sure.
Yeah,
I think you should just do it part time.
I think so too.
But these
like,
are
like start small, like in
Yeah.
cricket, like do a USA cricket.
yeah. But you know, my mind is always on sales. So when you talked to me this morning, Jared,
Yeah.
about, you know, what are some questions you're asking yourself, Nate, for next year? And I was like, you know, I honestly didn't think about asking myself questions.
Mm.
So then we started kind of going back and forth before the show. Well, what can carriers and brokers be asking themselves about their business to really just to have a, you know, maybe a better year next year? This year sucked.
Yeah.
You know, let's
Yeah.
reflect. Let's ask these questions that we'll talk about today. And hopefully in 2025, you're taking these questions serious and,
Yeah.
you know, working on.
Yeah.
So
I think one of my favorites, it's on that list over there. I think one of my favorites that, you know, you and I kind of broke down was, you know, what value do I bring to my employees and my customers? Now, it's a little bit two-sided, right? That the value you bring to your employees is different than what you would bring to your customers to a certain extent. The attitude is still there. But I think that's such an interesting question. You know, if you were ever on a cold call, and I've never actually gotten this, but, you know, we had Nick on a couple weeks ago, and he said, you know, he was talking about differentiators. And the differentiator is that you bring value. But what exactly does that friggin' mean? Such a $5 word that nobody really can answer, except for us. We're going to answer it today in about 30 seconds. So hang on. But I would be curious if you're watching, what value do you bring to your customers?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What value do we bring to our customers? Well, specifically with us, we do this show so that we can educate people, so that we can pull them along and hopefully bring in a higher class of people that are making calls, that are giving customer service, that are driving truck, that are freight brokering, that are dispatching. That's why that's the value we bring, right?
Yeah. And one thing that we talked about was just building your knowledge.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about if you're getting into something and you want to be the best, you have to have the knowledge for it, right? And if you're not willing to maybe put some extra time into reading, what's going around in the industry, or where the rates are at, or whatever it may be, where fuel's at. But yeah, knowledge is huge. And I think the question of the day is, well, how do I prove to the shipper that I have the knowledge?
Yeah.
What should I be doing? And I'm going to pick on Bella. Like if I was a shipper and I was on LinkedIn, well, she provides so much value on LinkedIn. And you could just tell she understands this industry.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good value out there.
Yeah.
What she's saying on LinkedIn and providing great value or tips for everyone looking. But yeah, there's something to be said of like, how do I just prove that I have the knowledge?
Yeah.
I think it's super hard to do.
And that can come in a lot of different ways. Right.
Give me a few ways.
We talked a little bit about the value that a leader can have in an effort in a sales organization or a brokerage or a carrier is defining reality. Accepting, I'll give you an example, accepting getting on the scale. You know what I mean? This is why I love golf so much. It's one of the few sports where you can actually call a penalty on yourself. Woo! That's fun.
Yep.
Getting on that scale sometimes isn't fun, but you've got to define your reality. You've got to go, where am I at? And that comes out as a leader in the culture of defining where the company's at.
Right.
Of defining, as a driver, as a trucking company, where am I at? What could I be doing differently? What am I doing well? I think even, defining a reality of what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are.
Right.
In your sales calls, defining reality is such an interesting avenue because you've got some things where you could go, all right, here's what I could work on to get better this year.
Right. And what comes to my mind immediately is relationships. I mean, and I've seen this on LinkedIn. Actually, it was this week where some lady had got a referral from another relationship. So I was like, okay, here's what's coming back to me is like, I need more relationships.
Yeah.
More opportunities will arise. You just never know what's going to come. Right. So when I think about when you define reality, one thing I think about is, okay, who's in my life now that, like you said, it's going to move that little ticker the way you want it to go.
Yeah.
Like, how is this person helping me get better? Or, how are they leading me towards my goals that I want to achieve? But relationship is huge. And it's always on my mind. Especially when I read on LinkedIn, people getting referrals from other people, like, hey, so-and-so told me to reach out to you. Like, it's just something to be said about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I really think, where you're talking about there is, defining reality can be very simple.
It can be, yeah.
How much cash is coming in and how much cash is going out on specifically to a P&L, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, what you're talking about is those soft skills that I think are wildly important this coming year. And those are things that are sometimes, you measure a lot of things. Tire Killer probably measures what's his deadhead miles between loads.
Right.
What's my fuel? What's my maintenance cost? All those things, right? Brokers do the same thing. Is the technology that I have giving me an ROI? There's a lot of things that we all measure, right? But are you measuring your relationships? Are you measuring how many calls you're making? Hopefully you are, right? Are you measuring how many emails you have? Those soft skills, those things those are wildly important when you're defining your own reality.
Yeah. I love having you, I love being sitting next to you because we think so differently as far as I'm thinking. I know you love relationships. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But you're also coming at a different angle as like, okay, how much cash should I spend this year?
Yeah. And
that's so important. And that's where I love that you add so much value because you've ran businesses before. You're running one now. And that's things you look into. Yeah. And I'm over here focusing on relationships. You're kind of looking at the other end. I think that's why we make such a good team.
Yeah.
I love that, man.
I agree.
So that leads me to my next thing is, as a business owner, what should they be looking at if they're missing like a piece of the puzzle?
I believe in outside perspective.
Yeah.
And I believe in it so much that, obviously I have some coaches that I deal with or work with.
Right.
I think that having people look at you from an outside perspective is wildly important. Coming up in this year, especially because sometimes you just don't see the obvious. Do you remember those kids in junior high or high school that were so freaking good at? You played baseball. You played college baseball, by the way, collegiate athlete. But do you remember those kids that were so freaking good at baseball, just naturally talented, but they never saw it, and they never realized? And you always hear this weird term. I don't know why I've always hated this terminology. They wasted their talent, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes those people and us and business owners and brokers and carriers, we need to see what we're good at and what we're not. Those strengths and weaknesses are really important. And sometimes you can identify them and see them, but sometimes you can't.
Right.
You know, just because of how you communicate or how you react to situations, those are things that you need to be able to have somebody help you with, identify and go, okay, what are my triggers?
Right.
You know, what am I doing this year? And those are things that I think are really important when you're asking yourself questions of how do I get somebody to help me out?
Yeah.
I hear something very interesting for the sake of just throwing this out there is that outside perspective can be right here in today's world. You want to talk about what's changing in today's world? ChatGPT knows what you're talking to them about and remembers it.
Yeah.
You know, our programmer the other day said something. He goes, ask your I'm not even thanks, Jim.
Hey, what's up, Jeremy?
What's going on, Jeremy? Good to have you on the show. The other day, the programmer actually said, and I thought this was wildly interesting, was he goes, have you ever asked ChatGPT what your goals should be next year? And I was like, no, I can't say I have. Yeah. And he has the ability to prompt ChatGPT in ways that I haven't seen other people prompt it, right? And it was interesting to have somebody just, you know, you're right here. They know you. Talk to it. Yeah. That's what the benefit of AI is. That's what the benefit of ChatGPT or all those things. So.
And the thing too with him, who you're talking about our programmer. Yeah. So the way he steers that, it's just asking better questions, asking it differently. Yeah. And that goes, I love that too, because it's like, oh, I should have asked it this way or went about it this way. Kind of like a sales call. Yeah. You got to ask better questions, right? So,
absolutely.
Samantha Jones, how are you?
Good. How are you guys?
We are doing good.
What's up?
What is I'm always laughing when you bring me in here because you just throw me in.
Whip you in.
We get excited to see you. You know, you have, honestly, I can't wait to hear what you have to say on almost every show. I'm like, Samantha Jones is here. Let's see what she's talking about today. Because you're very thought-provoking. You always have something in your mind where you go, yeah, that was a great friggin' point. You know, and I love that you have that. I hope you're ready for the holidays, Samantha. Tell me how life is.
Life's good. I kind of actually enjoyed this time of year because there's a little bit of like wind down, but you can be really productive in this time too. So like maybe some like fewer meetings, but you get more work done. So that's kind of been what I've been experiencing, and I'm enjoying that. Also, I have 2 clients right now who different than some of my others. They actually sell to brokers, and so they're on the tech side, and it's fun too because brokers answer the phone, especially this time of year. Like they're all kind of just like, yeah, what's going on? So that's kind of been like a fun part of my consulting lately has been seeing a different side of the industry and selling into the people that I always used to be. So that's fun. But yeah, but I mean, is there anything specific? Like I was trying to catch up on comments, anything going on you guys want me to talk about? Otherwise, I just kind of thought maybe we should talk about the time of year because we're entering RFP season, and even if it's not an RFP, we're entering like carrier evaluation season. So this is just kind of the next, honestly, like 4 months are going to be pretty important for a lot of people, I think.
I would love for you to dive into that, but I do have one question. How did you get into the industry?
Accidentally tripped and fell. No, I got recruited out of college actually, and I never left. So I was at a career fair at Kansas State, go Cats, and the ABF Freight had a booth there, and so that's how I started. As they actually, it's genius because they offer seniors jobs upon graduation. So like anyone who's ever been to college understands the pressure to like secure the job. And so it's actually like a lot of these bigger companies do the management training programs as a way to like capture that talent while they're still in school. And so really like my start date was just dependent upon a graduation and a degree, and then you're good to go. You go right into that program. I graduated in December and I started working in freight in January.
Interesting.
That's awesome. That's incredible. I love that.
Have you recruited anyone, like maybe friends, family, to get into this industry, or do you kind of tell them it's too crazy, don't do it?
I would tell anyone to do it.
Yeah.
I think that something that we like to not talk about enough, in my opinion, and I think like Freight Caviar is doing a piece on like they asked me to contribute to like 12 women to know in freight, and I gave some thoughts. And I feel like kind of the theme of my piece was like, you're going to have to be willing to work for it in this space. Like nobody steps into this space in like a leadership glamorous role. Like most people who came into freight or transportation were like, I was working overnights on an open air dock in January, like 10-hour shifts. That was that was how I came into the space. Like I, had to make sure trucks were loaded in and out of our warehouse. And so a lot of people would say a similar thing. So it's actually like a very unglamorous industry when you start. Most people's like starting stories were like slumming it in freight, right? Or even if you go into brokerage as your first role, you're probably the person who like has to cover all the loads for the junior broker for a broker, and you get $40,000 a year and you're like, schlepping freight all day. And like, that's your start in the industry. So I think that what I love about it and what I tell people is that our industry absolutely rewards hard work. Like if you come in and just work hard, you're going to succeed very quickly. Like there's so much opportunity to grow because we're a constantly growing and evolving space as a whole. So you don't have to like stay stuck for that long in our space. And that's what I love about it. So it's actually very advantageous for young people who are ambitious, in my opinion. But, kind of that we have these expectations now, especially like college graduates, that I'm going to go into $75K salary, some type of corporate desk job. And if that's your expectation trying to get into supply chain, like I think you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're Samantha, you're familiar with Bella. She had a really good point.
Yes.
Maybe we can talk about this. We'd love to hear about outreach at the end and beginning of the year, staying relevant versus being annoying. I love this.
Yeah. So just in general, I talk a lot about like staying relevant versus being annoying. And I come from the standpoint of like, so I think the thing I hate most in sales, and I wouldn't even call it sales, is like, hey, just checking in. Like, don't ever say that. Don't ever say you're checking in. And never say just. We've talked about that before. But what I encourage my clients to do, or anyone I talk to do, is come up with a way to add value to the people you're prospecting. So that depends on who you're prospecting. It might be different for each of your market verticals you're targeting, or different types of companies you're working with, and come up with a way that's actually value adding. So when you reach out on a monthly basis is kind of what I recommend as a preferred cadence, like every 4 weeks or so. It's not an email like, are you ready to work with me yet? It's, hey, I put together, a quick summary of what's going on in this space. I thought you might find this helpful or insightful. And it actually requires you to do some work, some homework, and which is good for you as a seller, because if you're giving out information, you need to make sure it's good information. You need to vet it. You need to kind of read into it, put your thoughts together. So it actually holds my sellers accountable to being educated in the market that they're serving too, and the industries that they're serving, which I appreciate. And this has also honestly never been easier now that we have AI around to help you do this. So like you could do the work of collecting like 6 articles that you think are insightful and dumping them into Claude or ChatGPT and saying, give me a high level summary of all 6 of these and what you think the main takeaways should be for a logistics professional. So like, we're not talking about difficult content to create anymore, which kind of sucks. It's almost like cheating now. But so here's the thing though, maybe with that, this is going to become more and more common. So like when I started doing this 4 years ago, like shippers weren't getting this information. And so this is just part of this like evolution of like the next way to be relevant and the next way to stand out. and it's getting a little bit more challenging, but I think there's still not enough people doing it that it's definitely worth capitalizing on. So that's one thing that I recommend. And then I think that something I used to do a lot in sales is if I reached out to someone in June or July and they were like, yeah, we don't start vetting people till the end of the year, I always put in a note. And what I do is when you reach out, you need to be specific. And you need to say, hey, Nate, we connected in July. You told me that you guys were going to start vetting partners in December. I wanted to reach out to you now to revisit that and see what you need from me for next steps to get that process started. And like, you're a little bit assertive, but you're also just like, don't be like, hey, I know that you guys are vetting this month. Like, let me know. You need to be as specific as you can. Also, I would personally recommend, had they given you that answer in July, I would have followed up in like September with something, or July, think about it, August, September, October, November of a once a month type of piece of information or something value added. When you ask for something in December, you're not a stranger. You're really not. They're aware of who you are and that you've been there since July. So this is a fun time of year for people to capitalize on things that they've been like slowly investing in all year. And so that's when like I talk a lot about playing the long game in sales, is investing in that over time. But that being said, 95-5 rule, 95% of your prospects are not looking to buy or onboard or vet or anything. 5% might be at any given point. This is a big season for 5%ers. Like there's probably statistically a better percentage right now than 5% looking to reevaluate their networks or vet out providers in the end of the year or the beginning of the new year. A lot of RFPs are going to launch in January, February. And so this is, honestly, we're probably like running out of time. Like this is something I would have been prepping, trying to get my foot in the door in October, November already for these, but it's definitely still worth a shot to be trying to circle back and be relevant and reach out to companies that you think might be evaluating their supply chains.
I love that. I think this, when it comes to adding value, you're right. We're in the best time of our industry to be able to utilize AI and just send an article over, hey, this is some RFP strategies that I saw this year that worked and didn't work. And I wanted to share this with you. I think differentiating yourself right now with AI is so much, it not only is easier, but it just at least it collects it for you so that you can stand out in that crowd. And if people aren't doing it, they're just going to continue to fall behind.
Yeah. And here's the thing that I've noticed in sales, just in the 6 years that I've done it. Early adopters always get the benefit. So like people who, like, again, we're talking about, oh, you can do this with AI and it's much easier. Well, that's great. I was doing it 4 years ago and it was really hard. Right. Yeah. So like I had a lot of benefits from doing that 4 years ago, and it's decreased in like how beneficial it is, I think, a little bit each year. And so now AI is going to make it easier. More people are going to do it. And then what we're going to end up with is a bunch of just shitty information that gets out there too. Like as I love AI, there's still a lot of very like half-assed work that gets done through AI. So we're going to start now. People are going to get tired of it. They're going to need the next thing.
Yeah.
And then we're going to hyper focus on the next thing. And then in a few years, it might even circle back. Like right now, I think people want cold calls again. Not really. Nobody wants a cold call, but they're like, oh, you actually had the like nerve to like call me? Wow. Because everybody started pivoting to these stupid AI LinkedIn messages that are written with AI. And they're just like, how many can I do? It's easy. It's doing it for me. And people stopped calling because nobody was answering the phone. Like you weren't connecting and people gave up. So I think we're always going to kind of see like this recycle phased out that are now the new thing to do again. Or like when I used to send videos, I started sending videos in 2019, like in emails, and I had like a 20%, 25% response rate. You don't get that now. You might get a better response rate than a regular email, but you're not getting that. Because more people are doing it. They're seeing it. And also people are just like, where now that I think it stands out a little bit less. Because that's the way that things have evolved. So really, sales is constantly going to be changing. And it's your job to try to figure out, like, how am I keeping up with what is different? And that's the biggest challenge, is like differentiating yourself, honestly. Like what you're saying is good. That's important. Like if you actually have actual value to add to them, that matters. But the trick is getting people to see it and actually getting them to read it so they know what you said and so that they can respond. And so standing out and actually getting people to engage with you is hands down the most challenging part of sales right now. I just had this conversation with a client yesterday. I said, what's your confidence that if you got on a meeting with someone, you're going to move it forward? They were like insanely high. I'm like, yeah, any good seller should be like obnoxiously confident in that, right? But what's your confidence level that you're going to be able to get a prospect to respond to you to set up a meeting? Most people are going to be like insanely low.
Yeah.
That's the problem with sales right now. Like that's what I try my best to focus on, is that super top of funnel, because that's where everybody's like stuck right now, and that's the challenge.
Yeah. I'm glad I started with walking indoors, because I didn't know any different. I actually didn't know the power of the phone until I was like, this is wild. You know what I mean? And I came from a retail environment where people came to me, at Tiffany's. And then when I started walking indoors, I was like, wow, this is wildly powerful. Like, I mean, it was just, it's a person. It's hard to say no, and then I got kicked out of a few places and they got kind of witty about it. But I think that you're right. The cycle of walking back in today's world, you can't do that.
It's like it becomes once there's a new thing and then another new thing and then another new thing, everybody's going to latch onto those. And then there's going to be saturation, and then there's going to be like fatigue. And then you're going to go back to the thing everybody gave up 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I think that there's going to be a lot of recycling based when it comes to sales. Like, people are impressed now when you show up in person to their door.
Yeah.
Because people stopped doing that as soon as you handed them Zoom info and Microsoft Teams. So like there's a time and a place for everything. Also, I mean, like, meeting people in person was never gonna not be my favorite way to sell. I always invested heavy in conferences when I was trying to sell and scale brokerages or trucking companies where I knew shippers were, because just being in the room with people. I just talked to a client this morning about it. I'm trying to get it, we're getting plans to go to a conference. She's like, well, what's the ROI? I'm not presenting. I'm not doing this. I said, being in the same room as these people, talking to these people, like, honestly, the networking events are the whole ROI. Is just like, hey, hi, how are you doing? This is my name. This is what I do. Let's talk in a month when we all get settled back in. Yeah. So like, that's hands down still my favorite way to sell, is get yourself visible and out there.
Yeah, I would agree.
What would you say to someone that struggles with phone/email selling? Chief Frey Holler, what's up, bro?
Most people who cold call are too focused on the outcome instead of the conversation they're having in real time. So they're like pushing hard for something. They're trying to sell. You are not trying to sell on a call. Like, I'm sorry, you're just not. You're trying to get them to want to talk to you again. That's your main goal. So you just need to tell them a little bit about what you do, give them enough context to make a decision on if they want to talk to you again next week, tomorrow, anytime. And so once you start just like focusing on your only primary goal as booking a meeting with that person or having another phone call with that person, then you become a lot more likable. Confidence is number one. If you're struggling, I'm sorry, you're going to have to practice a lot of fake confidence until it's real. Like, you need to say it in the mirror 20 times. Like, hi, my name's Samantha with Samantha Jones Consulting. How are you doing today? Really well. Because if you're like, hi, Nate, my name is Samantha, then you're just screwed. You might as well hang up the phone. So that's like my number one thing, is like, your tone matters more than almost anything you say. How pleasant and likable you are is very important on phone. And then just like detach from the outcome and just focus on being polite to that person, rolling with it, and trying to talk to them again. Email, I think everybody struggles with emailing, because like, what do I say? What do I not say? It sucks. My kind of primary rules for email are like, you have 2 sentences to lose someone, make it really personal, make it really about them and their company right away. And then after you make it about them and why you want to talk to them or why they should talk to you, then you give a little bit of context to your business, because it's like, oh, I saw you do this. I saw you do this. I saw you do this. Can we meet? They're like, why? Like, about for what? So if you don't give enough context about what you do and why, then like, it's not their job to do homework on you. It is absolutely not. So if you can't concisely present like who you are, what you do, and why they should talk to you after you do that intro, then you shouldn't expect a response. And so those are kind of like my golden rules for outreach. Also, subject lines are underrated. Let's get creative with subject lines. That gets attention, right? So that's kind of my go-to there. But a well-written email should take some research and intentionality. And you should know why you want to meet with that person. And if you're like, I don't know why I want to meet with this person, please don't send it. And people just overcomplicate phone calls. That's the honest truth of phone calls. Like, I've been cold calling a lot for some of my clients lately. And I'm like I said, I was doing text sales. So I'm calling like some C-suite guys too at some of these bigger companies. And like, I'm just talking to them. I'm just being pleasant. Like, just being, people say, one of my cold call opener go-to is, they answer and I say, hey, this is Samantha. How are you doing today? Or, well, I confirm if I don't know it's them. I'll be like, hey, is this Nate? They'll be like, yeah, it is. I'll be like, hi, Nate, this is Samantha. How are you doing today? That's that easy. And then they say, I'm doing good. How are you? And like the other day, I was like, well, you know what? I haven't gotten this flu that's going around that everyone seems to be getting. So I think I'm doing pretty good. And they like laughed and made a comment about their kid getting sick. Like we're just having conversations with people.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, like, well, that's good. And then he goes, well, what can I do for you? How can I help today? And he knew it was a cold call, but like I had bridged that intro to make it more pleasant. And so he was willing to reciprocate that and be more pleasant. So.
Yeah,
Love that.
Bella, good for you. I love that you're taking Samantha's advice and practicing on the way from the gym. Do people kind of look at you?
I do it in the car. I told her that once. I said, when I'm in the car, sometimes I'll have like full-blown 30-minute meetings I'm leading in my head, like when I'm prepping for something, depending on how long my drive is. The shower, the car. Yeah, anywhere that you're just by yourself, start saying, but say it out loud. Like actually talk it out loud. Pretend you're cold calling and like you hear their answer and then like you say it out loud. My last tip, and then I'm gonna have to run, is you're only ever gonna get the same, like usually it's about 5 objections on a cold call. You have zero excuse for not being prepared for your comeback. Like zero excuse. They are not going to give you something you haven't heard before. And if they do, write it down and now you're prepared next time. But like most of the time you're getting the same dang answers. And so then people fumble over that. And it's like, you can have a script written out of like, I'm going to get this objection. This is what I'm going to say. I'm going to get this objection. This is what I'm going to say. And so like, you shouldn't be like scared when you cold call, like you're going to get something thrown at you you're not ready for, because 90% of the time you're ready for everything they're going to throw at you if you've.
Right.
I love that.
Really nice.
Samantha Jones, you have been a wonderful part of our 2024. You made our Spotify wrap, and we appreciate you being on our show. So you're really, honestly, you always bring so much value. We can't thank you enough for your time, your effort, and just being on. And it's so awesome to jive with you. We appreciate it and value so much. How do people get in touch with you? Where are you going in February? What's going on in your life? You're talking in 2024. You got a lot going on in your life. Give us a rundown of how people can see you.
You can connect with me on LinkedIn at Samantha Jones. Also, I am working on getting better with YouTube. Meet Me for Coffee YouTube channel, and there might be a Samantha Jones Consulting YouTube channel too. So we're putting some more shorts on there from all of our podcast discussions and also sales tips. So I'm doing some sales tips Saturdays. They get clipped out there now too. And then in February, I'm heading to Manifest the Future of Logistics, I think, in Las Vegas, the February 10th to the 12th. If you're interested, I have links probably like all over my website or my newsletter or LinkedIn with a discount code for $200 off registration. I think it's a great one. Everyone should experience it at least one time and then decide if it's what's best for them. But there's people there from all types of businesses, infinite things you could learn about depending on what sessions you choose to put yourself in. I am speaking. I'm moderating a panel there with some executives from some larger kind of like procurement shipping type of companies. So that will be fun, a little different for me, and I'm looking forward to that. So, and the podcast will be there. The Meet Me for Coffee podcast will be there. We are still, we have a few slots left for sponsorship. So Manifest is a unique one for us. We put a lot of money out to be there with professional production and editing crew. And so we do have to charge for that, but we have people on the show and they get a lot of cool deliverables from that. So if your company's already going and you want to get some ROI out of it, we get you a lot of like airtime and then video content to take back with you. So would love to partner with that.
That's cool. I love that.
Yeah. Samantha, thanks again. Enjoy your Christmas and have a good New Year. And be safe if you do any traveling.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. See ya. If you guys aren't following her, for the love of God, go do it right now. She is amazing.
I gotta shut the window. It's like 19 degrees out.
I saw the breath.
I gotta tell you though, she has some of the most incredible. If you didn't just sit there and think through, okay, what did she just say that I could implement into 2025? One thing I thought that was really interesting, and we're out in the middle of friggin' nowhere.
Yeah.
So take that for what it is. But if you don't have on your list to either get involved in some kind of conference or group where people are going to be at, I think that's a huge takeaway for me. I think number 2 was just how she talked about shortening up emails, calls, phone calls. Phone calls are just conversations. Mm-hmm. We've got to get better at communicating.
Yeah.
And we've got to focus on that to a certain extent.
Mhm.
And so I loved those two takeaways for me. I don't know if you had anything that was a takeaway from her.
No, I enjoyed especially the piece on trying to add value and
Yeah.
just, how do you add value to a prospect, right? I think
Yeah.
that's the one thing that I enjoy. Just how do you add value? How do you continue to grow? But yeah, no, I enjoy it. I think that everything she says and posts everywhere, it's like you have to implement that somewhere into your business.
Mhm.
So reflect on how you can add that. Let's see here. Oh, you picked up a load for a new customer this morning. That is awesome, dude. Heck yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Standing
I
ovation
love
for
that.
Jared. That's good.
love that.
He never stands.
Is
That's
it a
awesome.
hazmat one? Is it feeling good? Yeah. Is it hazmat though? I still can't get enough of that. The other thing that I think is interesting, Bella mentioned it, she mentioned it, and I've gotten a lot from it, is role playing. Is probably one of the most awkward things to do until it isn't.
Right.
And if you're out there, like, you're a single guy, let's say that you're out just trying to pick up a gal or have a conversation. Are you, how does it go? Do you fumble over your words when you see her at the bar? Yeah, exactly. So it's like, okay, well, how do we role play?
Yeah.
Or in the same sense of a cold call, how do you role play? And you can do that with yourself. You can do it with a buddy. You got to find somebody that's okay with being uncomfortable. But man, I tell you what, I love it. I'm excited that you got no hazmat yet. Damn it, Cheap Freight Haul. You got to take us up on it. Hit us up. I'm here next Thursday and Friday. Hit us up. I want to have 20 minutes with you, and we're just going to sit there and talk about some hazmat shippers that are right in your area. So, Nate, I enjoyed today's show.
Yes. Dude.
I hope you have a wonderful Christmas. We're going to take a few days off here. We'll be back next Friday because we love you guys and want to continue to bring value. But what a great show.
Yeah. You guys, if you enjoyed Samantha's input today, which I hope you did, give her a thumbs up. Go to her YouTube channel, subscribe, Spotify, go follow her on everything. Give this video a thumbs up as well. But if you guys have any questions or anything like that, hit us up. We'd love to meet with you, talk about your business, and just see what 2025 looks for you. And maybe we'll share a little bit about what we got planned too as well. So don't be afraid to hit us up. You guys, we'll see you next week. Bella, have a great Christmas. I hope you eat lots of chorizo because I know you like that.
I know.
I made sure to tell my mom to make a bunch for Christmas morning. That's what I love. So, but you guys have a great Christmas. We'll see you next week.